with apartments, you don't buy it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that like fancy Joe would buy his apartment complex and then swim in his money, you know,
Yeah.
on the top, right? And I was like, well, okay. But then I learned it's actually a group investment. This, you know, you get together with other people, so very experienced people, and people that maybe don't have experience but have money, and you pool together your resources, your time, and your money to be able to buy this as a group.
You're listening to Investing for Good, a show that brings you the stories and strategies of people who are investing to build a legacy for their families, create a meaningful and intentional life by design, and impact the world around them. And now, here are your hosts, Annie Dickerson and Julie Lamb.
Hey everyone, Annie Dickerson here together with my fabulous co-host, Julie Lamb. Julie, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. How about you? How are you guys? Are you still playing down by the river?
You know, the kids are, I don't know how kids can be bored in a house with a creek in the backyard. I'm like, come on, you guys want to go to the creek? Do you want to hike to the river? Do you want to go to the playground? Do you want to do this? And they're like, no, that's all boring. How about internet? Do we have internet in this place? I'm like, oh.
I know, it's so funny. I feel like I'm having more fun out here with, than the kids are, just being able to be free and run around and just be a kid. I guess I want to be the one.
Yeah, I know. My favorite feature of this house that we're staying in is that they have this closet full of board games and puzzles. So I've been doing puzzles. I've forgotten the joy of doing puzzles. It's so so peaceful and relaxing. The kids are just running around wild, but whatever. I'm doing my puzzle. Mama's doing her puzzle.
And they're
don't
not
touch
bothering you? Oh my goodness. Wow. That's fun. Yeah, I love doing puzzles too. I don't get to do them as often as we used to. Vince and I used to sit at our dining table, and we attempted to do this one. I forget how many thousands of pieces it was, but it was huge, and we left it there for like weeks, and we would just every week, we'd try to get at it. I don't think we ever finished it, and then we started having kids, and it's been sitting collecting dust. But
oh man,
yeah. But speaking of kids, I'm super excited to have Camilla Jeffs on the show today. She's got 5 kids, which is so intense for me to think about. I have 3 and I'm hanging on by a thread. I can't imagine having 5 and working a W-2 and finding the time and the bandwidth to implement all of her skills that she has with the rehab and the renovation and getting her kids involved, which is so crazy. But yeah, she's done so much, and I think she had such a great message to share with all of the other moms that I'm sure our audience are a lot of women, a lot of moms, and just such a great message to share about educating yourself and getting out there and just doing it. But a very inspirational story.
Yeah, talk about a super mom. I mean, Camilla, she's the founder of Steady Stream Investments, and she didn't grow up with real estate, and she really got into it sort of by accident, sort of just by being curious, being open-minded and curious about her observations of people around her, and then just voraciously consuming books. I love that part of her story where she was just hungry for information, and she just read all these books and talked to all these people and learned all this stuff. And now she's paying it forward through Steady Stream Investments and really sharing her knowledge with others so that they can figure out this whole real estate thing and see if syndications are right for them. And she talks a lot about the ins and outs of syndication on this show, which we've touched a lot on it high level, but we haven't really dug into exactly how they work.
Yeah, and I love how she said in the beginning how she started off renting a garage, which I thought was so crazy. But everyone's got to start somewhere. And how she was paying $100 a month for her mortgage, right? Or that was after she moved out of the garage, bought a duplex, and was paying $100 a month, which is so crazy. And if anyone out there is listening and thinks, gosh, I really want to get into this, I want to pay $100 a month for rent or my mortgage, definitely think about doing the of house hacking, which is how all of us have gotten started in this business. And, get out there and see if you can find a duplex and house hack your way to investing.
Super inspirational story packed with really good information. Here it is, our conversation with Camilla Jeffs. Hey, Camilla, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm so great. Thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to be here.
We are thrilled to have you. Now, Camilla, I want to start by highlighting that you have just a couple of kids, right? 1, 2 kids? How many kids do you have?
5 kids.
5 kids. And how old are they now?
My youngest is 9 and the oldest is 18.
Oh my goodness. And you have twins in there too, right?
I do. Yeah. I have a set of twins. They're 15, identical twin girls. They're super cute. We just have one boy who's 13. So I should have 4 teenagers. Can you imagine?
Wow.
4 teenagers.
That's crazy.
Oh man, what a crazy life. But the reason I wanted to start out and talk about your kids is because I am continually amazed. You have 5 kids, you've created multiple businesses, and you're a successful real estate investor. And this is one of the big reasons why we wanted to have you on the show and why we know that your story is going to really inspire so many of our listeners. Now, these days, you've successfully invested in many, many properties, and you've created steady stream investments to help people invest passively in real estate syndications. But let's start by going back to the beginning. How did you get into real estate in the first place? And just out of curiosity, which one came first, real estate or kids?
You know what? They came simultaneously. Is that crazy?
My goodness.
So I had my first baby and bought my first investment property within about a month of each other.
Oh my gosh.
And for us, we kind of fell into real estate investing out of necessity because we didn't have very much money. Like, we were very young when we got married. We had a baby very young, and we were both still in college. So, 2 people in college, married with a baby. You can imagine, like, we had zero money. Well, right before we had the baby, we were living in a garage, like literally living in a garage apartment that this woman had converted into like an apartment. So we're living in this garage, and she was a realtor, and she owned several investment properties. And so we started talking to her one day, and we said, what are you doing? Like, how can we do something? Because we'd like to move out of the garage. I mean, it's nice and all, but we'd like to move out. And she suggested that maybe we find a property that had a basement apartment. And then if you buy a property, you live in the top and you rent out the basement, then that could help you with the mortgage. And we thought, okay, well, let's do it. So yeah, we jumped in, gave birth to my baby, and then we moved in like 2 weeks later to our, it's called a house hack now. We didn't call it that back then, but it was a 2-unit house, I guess, and we rented out the basement. And the super cool thing about that was we paid maybe $100 a month to live there, which was perfect. That's all we could afford, $100 a month. But yeah, that's how we got started. And that's when I started thinking, there's something to this real estate stuff. And from there, just took off.
Wow, I can't even imagine moving into your first investment property with a newborn and starting off on this real estate adventure. And so what town or what city were you in at the time?
This was in Ogden, Utah. And so it's northern Utah, and that's where we were living at the time.
That area is growing a lot, I hear.
Yes, it is a fantastic market. The Salt Lake City, northern Utah market, really great market. I'm trying to get in there and see what I can dig around and find. So yeah, it's a good one.
So that must have been, we talk all the time about how, when you're starting out, it's so important to find somebody who's already achieved that success. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And it's so fortunate for you. It's the same with Julie and me, that we had a realtor that guided us along the way. And it sounds like you had a realtor, a landlord, and a mentor all in one.
That's right. Yeah, she was really great. When we were so grateful for her, and we maintained that relationship with her for a long time. She helped us buy the next investment property and the next one, and so it was fantastic, and I was really glad for that relationship.
Yeah. So tell us about that, because a lot of people, when they buy a home, they figure this is it. I'm just going to live in this home forever, especially if they can pay $100 a month, right? They're like, okay, this is it. I'm just going to pay $100 a month until I can pay this thing off. And then we'll be living like kings. And so did you plan from the beginning, like this is only the first one, we're going to do more? Or how did you go from the first one to the second one and then more?
Once I learned the power of real estate and learned that, not only could I live for very, very cheap every month, I could also build wealth, build equity from the property. I mean, my renters were paying down the mortgage on it, and they were providing us with a good way to live. And so then I thought, there's got to be something more to this. There's got to be more that I can do. And that's when I started picking up books. And I'm such an avid reader. Like, I'll read so many books. And if I get hooked on a topic, I'll order, 10 books at a time, and I'll go through them all in a month. And it's just, I just want to understand everything. I'm hungry for knowledge. And so that's what I did. I started reading books. 2 books in particular were very influential at that time. One was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a classic. Lots of people talk about that one, but that's the one where he talks about how don't see your house as an asset, because if you just live in your house, and you're the one paying all the bills, all the mortgages, all the upkeep, all the everything you have to do, it's just money flying out the window. And instead, it's a liability, is what he suggested. And I remember talking to my dad and my brother about it, because the 3 of us read the book at the same time. And my dad's like, yeah, man, yeah, houses are liabilities. And then he looks at me, he's like, oh, but not you, Camilla, because you've done something different. Right. You're right. So that one really spurred me, helped me with the mindset. And then the nuts and bolts book that helped me was the acquiring a house one house at a time, right? And so it was by John Schaub, and it's a book about this strategy where you buy a house every 2 years, you move into it. If it needs to be fixed up, you fix it up. It doesn't have to be a fixer, and then you move out and rent it. You hold it for 10 years, so you acquire rental properties just at a really small, steady pace. It's nothing huge, nothing mind-blowing. You just keep moving in. So that's the strategy that we went with. And we also went with the fixer-upper mentality. So we thought it'd be even better if we bought a house that needed a lot of fix-ups, and we could learn it. We had all the confidence in the world. Like, yeah, we got this. Lots of mistakes, but a lot of learning and a lot of skills that we really built. And so that's how we did it. Really, literally almost every 2 years we moved into a new house, a new city, had to get to know new people. And we took that through us as we moved around the nation. So we're kind of the opposite of what you talked about in the beginning, Julie, or Annie, the ones that stay somewhere for forever. we move every year to 2 years. And we still do, even with our older kids. We still move.
Oh my goodness. What are the benefits in doing that? Because I know there's some tax benefits in that as well, right? Like if you stay for a couple of years and then you move out, or I guess that's only if you were to sell it and not keep it as a rental, there's tax benefits there, right?
Right. Yeah. So the tax benefits is you don't pay any capital gains tax as long as you've lived in the home 2 of the previous 5 years.
Okay.
And that's kind of the strategy that we took. So we'd move in, we'd live there for a year or 2, we'd fix it up, we'd move out, and then keep it for 3 years, and then sell, and then we'd use the funds from that home to get the next one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. That's a nice little secret that I learned somewhere buried in a blog post, like in a thread, and people were talking about it. I'm like, I didn't know anything about this. Like, I didn't know this at all. So that's so cool. And so you guys are still continuing to do this to this day, because I see posts on Facebook and you guys are going through the renovation. So it's not to do the renovation so you can live there forever and make it your forever home, but it's to then turn it around and keep it as a rental or to sell it the one that you're in now?
Either one. I think it depends on the market. It depends on where we are. Sometimes we sell right away. Sometimes we keep it and rent it. We just really evaluate the market. And I think the fun thing now for us is that our 5 children have grown up doing this with us. I mean, I have cute pictures of my twins when they were 18 months old with their hands in the paint bucket and crying because they paint everywhere. But now, I mean, my 15-year-old twins, they can sheetrock themselves. They can cut the baseboards, install them. I mean, they know how to caulk and they do all the painting. I mean, they've learned so many great skills from our lifestyle. Now, our lifestyle is not for the faint of heart. I'm not going to advocate that this is for everybody. It's definitely not. It is hard to move all the time. It is hard to, constantly be in an ambiguous environment, trying to learn to meet new people. But I also think it's really good skill building for the kids, not only just for, real estate stuff, but also socially, because they're always the ones that have to break into the social group. So they're constantly outside of their comfort zone. Yeah. And they have to learn to navigate everywhere we go. And I think that has just given them these amazing skills, life skills, that they will be grateful for later. They're not always grateful for it now.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that I did a lot growing up. We moved around a lot, from Beijing to Iowa to New Jersey to Memphis and on and on. And I attribute my creativity and my sense of open-mindedness to that moving around, because that's exactly what you said. I always had to break into an existing social circle and think of a new way to connect with people. And it's uncomfortable, but once you get the hang of it, you practice it, it's kind of cool. You can kind of reinvent yourself each time. So I love that you're doing that for your kids, even though I'm sure sometimes they may not appreciate it right now, but it builds character. So you mentioned earlier on, your father and your brother also reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad with you. So I'm curious, when you were growing up, were you exposed to any of this world? And then once you got into it, was your family supportive of what you were doing, or were they like, Camilla, what's she doing over there?
So that's a great question. So growing up, I was, you think I have a lot of kids. I was one of 10 children.
Oh my gosh.
So my parents had double what I have.
Oh my goodness.
So growing up, I would say we grew up and we had a nice life. We had just a house out in the farm. My parents were both farmers from Idaho, and so we had this small little farm that we grew our own vegetables and had our own fruit trees and raised our own cattle and chickens and for meat and eggs, right? So we had a very, it was a beautiful childhood. I had a beautiful childhood, but my dad would teach us a little bit about money, but there was no investing that I knew of that was happening that they would share with us. So they didn't own real estate. They didn't get into owning real estate. I since spoken with my dad, and he's kicked himself several times for not buying the land across the street because, they wanted $100,000 for it. He's like, what? That is so expensive. And then the guy who bought it split it into 8 and sold it for $100,000 per lot. Right.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. So no, he didn't understand. My family didn't really get into investing. It wasn't a learned skill. It was from my parents, right? It's nothing that they've passed down to me. So since then, as I've gotten into real estate, I think they've all just kind of watched from the sidelines. None of my brothers or sisters have really gotten into it until just this past 5 years. My father finally, took the step, and he picked up a couple of rental properties, and he did buy some land next door. And so now he's started to acquire some assets, and I've helped him to do most of those asset acquisitions.
And what about your 9 brothers and sisters? Do any of them invest in real estate?
No, none of them have really gotten into it, I think.
Oh, shoot. I was going to say, you got your built-in investor network right there.
I know. Not yet.
Not yet. They'll see.
Come to me for advice, though. And I think in the near future, one of them will invest with me, but we're still in the education phase.
I think it's so great that you didn't come from real estate and your background was not like family didn't own real estate. You weren't taught that when you were younger. And that's very similar to me as well. My family did some real estate, but I was never taught what it is, how it works, and why to do it. I just knew that it was something that they did. And I think it's important for people to hear that, because I think oftentimes people think that it's either only for the rich, only for the people who come from a background in real estate, or, people who just get it. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. And I think one thing that you had mentioned earlier on was the fact that you took it upon yourself to really educate yourself, and you read and you consumed so many books. And I think that is something that Annie and I are so passionate about, is more women need to get out there and educate themselves, which is, I know what you do as Steady Stream and what we do at Goodegg as well, is the education piece is so important. So I want to kind of shift a little bit now and talk about how you moved from doing all of the rentals and everything that you do on that side of it, how you discovered multifamily and what that means to you, how you came to create Steady Stream, and share a little bit about what you guys do there.
So through my investing journey, education, like you, I'm so passionate about financial education. I think it's a shame that it's not taught to people, and just nobody knows how money works, right? You're supposed to go to a job, and then the job gives you some money, and then you pay your bills, and then buy cool things with whatever's left over. So there's no solid financial education out there, and I'm just really frustrated about it, especially for women. And there's a really interesting stat that I read the other day that shocked me, and it was that 80% of men die married, right? They're married at the time of their death. Mm-hmm. Flip that, 80% of women die single, from various reasons, right? Some of it is because women outlive men. Some, and the average age of widowhood, listen to this, is 56. That's the average age of widowhood. So if you're relying on the man in your life for your financial planning, unfortunately, women are the ones who suffer from poor financial planning. So I think that's why I think it's super important that women really take control of the financial planning. That doesn't mean that you just leave your husband out and you're like, nope, I do it. You can't see what's going on, right? But that means you need to know where are your investments, how much is coming, what does the budget look like, right? It can't be that you just don't know what's going on. You need to be in the weeds. Super important that you're in the weeds, and then call out things that you've learned, right? There's a really great book called Smart Women Finish Rich. And that one is phenomenal to teach women the basics, but it's missing real estate. So anyways, my journey, as we're going along, we're buying all these single family homes, and we're acquiring single family investments, learning about renters, but then I want a little bit bigger, and so I bought a fourplex. Thought that was a good progression step to buy a fourplex. And the thing I liked about the flex is that if we moved out, then I wasn't all of a sudden down to zero income, which is what happens on a single family home, right? You only have one tenant paying the full income. They move out, all of a sudden there's nothing. And the fourplex kind of really helped that. The thing I didn't like about the fourplex was there was a lot more management to it, right? So there's a lot more tenant turnover, and you have to work through that. But, I'm a solopreneur, I'm a do-it-yourselfer. And so I launched my own property management company so I could really understand property management and to do it better, because I was getting tired of dragging the kids over there to go meet prospective tenants and showings, and there's got to be a better way. So I launched that, and after I launched that, I put on my vision board, someday I'm going to own a large apartment complex. And this was probably 7 years ago that I put that on my vision board. I'm going to own a large apartment complex, and I had no idea how to do that. Then, as we started going, then I had my fifth baby, and life got really, really busy with 5 children. We had to homeschool for various reasons at different times in their lives. And so I was extremely busy with children and raising them. And I started feeling this burning inside my heart. And I just knew that there was something more that I needed to do. There was something more I needed to do with my life. And so I thought, well, maybe I just need to go back to school and, get my MBA. So I did that. Went back to school, got my MBA, and I started studying commercial real estate in my MBA because this in the back of your brain, when you put something on your vision board, it's your brain's not going to let it go. So I'm doing my MBA, studying commercial real estate. I actually got to go to Europe and study commercial real estate in Paris and in Amsterdam and London.
Wow.
It was just amazing. It's an amazing trip to go there. Graduate my MBA, and I took a job in the corporate world because I wanted to try that. I like to try things. And, the corporate world is great. I met a lot of really good people, but it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel like that this was the right thing for my heart. And I just knew in my heart that I needed to build a business again. Early 2019, I just said, okay, this is the year. This is the year that you're going to buy your apartment complex. I looked at my bank account. I'm like, I spent all my money on that MBA.
As people do. It's
now
the way
what?
of the world. Yeah.
Right? And then I look at the prices of an apartment complex, and they're millions of dollars. I mean, they could be anywhere from $5 million to $50 million for an apartment complex. And my mind had not yet been able to think in the millions, right? All my investments had been in the 100,000 range, and educated myself throughout most of 20. I hired 2 mentors to help me with, build my business, to help me learn about the acquisition side, like how to actually buy it. And then also to help me learn about how to teach other people how to get involved. Because here's the fun thing. This is with apartments. You don't buy it by yourself. I always thought that Fancy Joe would buy his apartment complex and then swim in his money, at the top. Right? And I was like, well, that's not okay. But then I learned it's actually a group investment. You get together with other people. So very experienced people and people that maybe don't have experience but have money, and you pool together your resources, your time, and your money to be able to buy this as a group. And I was like, wow, that was a light bulb moment for me that you could do that, because I always thought you had to do everything by yourself. And so then last year I did. I invested in my first, it's called a syndication, right? And I talk about this a lot, but syndication, the group investment, and got a 107 units apartment complex in Tucson, Arizona. And I was so ecstatic. It was really great. And now I'm like, wow, how can I do this again? And so working on doing it again and again and again.
We'll get back to our conversation with Camilla in just a minute.
Have you been thinking about investing in real estate but aren't sure you have the time or the desire to manage the investment? Perhaps you're afraid, like we were, that you'll make the mistake of choosing the wrong market or the wrong team and lose your entire investment. Well, that's exactly why we created the Goodegg Investor Club. We do the work of identifying solid real estate investment opportunities in the best markets around the country and then partner with you to acquire these investments, and then we'll all share in the returns. We'll identify the growing markets, strong, experienced teams, and the solid deals. We do all the heavy lifting of managing the tenants and the renovations, and as a passive partner, you get to enjoy all the benefits of investing in real estate, monthly cash flow, long-term appreciation, and the ongoing tax benefits. When we first discovered passive investing through real estate syndications, we realized it fit perfectly into our busy lives. We could put our money to work for our families, work less, and get more time back in our days so that we could focus on what matters most and discover our true passion and purpose in life. We've now helped hundreds of people invest passively in real estate syndications and are seeing the positive impact it's had on their lives. We invite you to partner with us by joining the Goodegg Investor Club today so you can start putting your money to work for you and get more time back in your day, because we know that when people have more time in their days, they can do the true work they were intended to do, and the world will be a better place. To sign up for the Goodegg Investor Club, go to goodegginvestments.com/invest and we'll take it from there. That's goodegginvestments.com/invest.
And now, back to our chat with Camilla Jeffs.
For the people who may not know, because I'm sure there may still be people out there who don't know how a syndication works. Like, let's say I said, Camilla, I have some money. This all sounds really great and interesting, but how do I know I can trust people? What do I need to do? I mean, do I just hand over, money? And if so, how much? Like, how do I know? Like, so tell people what maybe the, very high level process is and kind of how it works, what the minimum investment is, what their role in the deal is as a passive investor. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So if you've never been involved in real estate before, it's totally fine. You can get involved in a syndication, even if you've never done a deal. But there are certain qualifications to be able to be part of the deal. So there's a couple of things that you'll need to know. So one, you need to know the sponsor, right? You need to build relationships with people like me, with people like you, and with other established people out there that know what they're doing. So that's really important that you start building relationships. Number two, you need to know there are different classifications of investments. So when you get into large commercial real estate, we have these things called laws. There's two different types. 506C means like it can be for anybody, but it's for people who are what's called an accredited investor. So an accredited investor is one of two things. You have $1 million net worth, or you have a personal income of $200,000 or joint income of $300,000 per year. So that's what an accredited investor is. Now, if you don't qualify as an accredited investor, don't worry. You need to prove that you know what you're doing, right? So maybe you have experience in mutual fund investing, like real experience, not the experience where you just give your money to a professional and they manage it. Maybe you have an MBA and you studied investing, like commercial real estate invested, and you can prove that you know what you're doing, and also that you're not using the last few dollars in your bank account. You want to make sure that you're investing is money that you don't absolutely need at any time. I love real estate because it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's definitely a get rich slowly over time thing. And that's why I like it, because I'm not interested in super risky investing. But I just want to build wealth over time for my family.
And if you were to tell an investor, what are sort of the top 3 benefits of investing in a deal passively? Why would someone want to invest in a deal like that, in a pooled type of scenario?
So benefits, there's huge benefits for passive investors. So one of those benefits is time. So you don't have to put in any time into the investment after you've done your due diligence and done all of your education and made sure that say, yes, this investment is good for me, right? You're not going to have to drive down and fix a toilet. You're not going to have to meet with the tenants. You're not going to have to do any of that. We hire professional managers to do that for us. You rely on the professionals, those who have been in the business doing it day in and day out for years and years and years, to manage the property for you. So you get to keep your time. Another huge benefit is you get cash flow, as opposed to, when I put my money in the stock market, of course you'd earn like dividends, and once a year you'd see your thing. You're like, oh, it kind of grew. But investment in real estate is so much better because you get cash flow coming in. So either that's monthly or quarterly cash flow, and that's money you can use. And often that money is tax-free, right? Which is another huge benefit is taxes. Because you are a direct owner in this property, then those tax benefits get passed on to you. Let me just tell you, they're amazing. They are really amazing. And the fourth one, I'm adding a fourth. I know you said just 3, but I'm adding a fourth.
Sure, yeah.
The fourth one is you get appreciation. Now, appreciation just means whatever the building is worth today, in 5 years from now, it will be worth more, right? It almost always is worth more in a commercial building for a couple of reasons. It's not just because rent grows over time, but also because we can control the value of the building by how much income it produces, right? So you have your income, you subtract your expenses, and whatever that number is, it's called net operating income. That is a direct reflection of how much that building is worth. So we could do things like reduce the expenses. I mean, maybe they're paying way too much for marketing, or they're, or we go in and we install low flow toilets and faucets. And so now we save money on the utility bills. And so there's lots of things that you can do to help the building to appreciate.
And what is the typical minimum investment that people can, think about when they're thinking about doing one of these pooled investments?
I've seen a couple different ones, but for the majority, it's around $50,000. So some will have a $50,000 minimum. Some I've seen as low as $25,000, but it should not be, a $5,000 thing that you can just throw into this. This is a hefty investment, and it's available. But you'll be surprised that you probably do have $50,000 that you could invest, and people don't realize this, that they have it in their retirement accounts, because that's another strategy that you can use. Is you can use money in your retirement account to invest in a real estate syndication. And so it's a way to diversify that retirement account as well. So any IRA, Roth IRA, 401k, things like that, you can put into what's called a self-directed IRA, and then put that into the syndication.
Nice. I love that. I love that there's that option for people, because I think it's true. A lot of people are thinking, well, I don't just have $50,000 lying around, but in fact you do. And when I first discovered that, that you could use your IRAs or your old IRAs and roll them into a self-directed, was like mind blowing. So that's what I did. 3-4 years ago, I took some old IRA money that was lying around and that was making, hardly anything. Now it's making, 8 to 9% cash flow every month. And I'm going to get that back end too into my IRA. So when investors are thinking about investing in these pooled investments, do you have any advice for them in terms of what's happening with COVID-19 and how it's impacting the investment world, particularly as it relates to multifamily? Any thoughts or advice there?
I'm a super conservative investor. I don't like to lose money, and I don't want to lose money on my investments. And I for sure don't want any of my investors, people invest with me, to lose any of their money. And so I think it's important to make sure that you have a solid understanding of the people who are going to be running the project. I think that is like the most important thing. Are they trustworthy? Do they have a strong track record? Have they been doing this for years and years, or is this something they just barely started doing last month, right? Have they been able to weather storms? Do they have examples of times when they've had a storm, and what have they done when things have gone wrong? You want to ask all of those questions and ask about the risks involved in the investment, because every investment has a risk. There's no investment out there that you're going to be able to put your money in and get guaranteed it's going to double in 2 years, right? That's just not going to happen. And I think people know that it's common sense that there is definitely risk out there. But you just have to understand the risk and be comfortable and figure out what kind of risk you're comfortable with. So I'll give a quick example. If you want to invest on, say, the West Coast, right? So the West Coast is a very expensive market. You probably won't get very much cash flow, but there's the chance you'll get a huge appreciation at the end, right? Because homes there, or multifamily there, tends to appreciate faster than it does, say, in like Ohio, right? But that's a lot more risky, because maybe it won't. Like, remember the market crashed in 08 to 09, and the West Coast got hit hard. And so things didn't go as well. But the steady eddies, the cash flowing ones in Ohio did fine. They had good cash flow. Their appreciation doesn't have the opportunity for explosive appreciation. So it just kind of depends where your comfort level is. If you're an investor who wants like really fast appreciation, go for it, right? But if you're someone like me, so I'm in my 40s, I've got 5 children, I need safety, right? Security. I tend to gravitate towards those that will give me nice, steady, stable cash flow in steady, stable markets, and I stay away from the coasts. They're not my favorite places to invest.
Love all of that. Now, before we transition into the Investing for Good Impact round, I do want to ask really quick, at Steady Stream Investments, what type of assets are you guys going after, and what markets are you guys focused on?
Yeah, so I have 2 types of assets. So one is definitely multifamily, and we like to give multifamily a grade. So if you're not familiar with the grading system, an A class means a really fancy, all the bells and whistles, got a butler right there to open the door for you. And then B class is just that.
Mhm.
C class is like workforce housing. So think about your McDonald's managers, people that are making between $30,000 to $50,000 a year. And specific markets that I like the Phoenix, Arizona market. So Phoenix and Tucson, Arizona is where I have mine. I also love Charlotte, North Carolina. That's a fantastic market. Texas is a really good market, and Atlanta, Georgia. So those are my favorite 4 markets for multifamily. The other asset class that I'm focusing on right now is actually assisted living. So I'm partnering with a local company here in Arizona who is going to be building out assisted living, and it's a memory care neighborhood, which is a really cool thing that it's like little villas around, and that's a really cool space to be in. I love that space too, because for me, Steady Stream Investments is very intentional in the types of investments that we make. We're not looking simply for a financial return. That has to be there, absolutely has to be there. We have to provide a good financial return for investors, but we also want to make sure that every investment we do has a purpose behind it and is making an impact in the local community. That's how I ran my property management business. My tenants were super important to me. I want to make sure that they have what they need, and that they're taken care of. That's one of the reasons I gravitate towards multifamily, is because I can impact hundreds of lives now instead of just one as a single family home. And then another reason I gravitate towards senior living, because I had a grandma who suffered from Alzheimer's, and it was hard. It was hard on the family, and it was important. So it's important for me to figure out a way to get involved and to help our elders who really need our help right now.
Yeah. I think one thing you mentioned that, you said that you want to make sure that you're aligned with sponsor partners who have the same vision as you, because that's the way you did it before. And when I first got into investing in passively in these syndications, it was very much the same. I really took my time, and that's something that I would advise people to do, is make sure that you take the time to find people whose vision in terms of operating these properties is very much in alignment with yours, because you're going to be in these deals with people for 3 to 5 years, so you want to make sure that they would do things the way you would, except that they have the knowledge that you need to be able to properly manage these investments, which you don't. But it's kind of like when you think about when you get married, and as long as you guys have the same values and the morals, but they may have something else that they bring to the table, it's going to be a win, because at the end of the day, you have that shared vision. And I think that's such an important thing to remember. So I love that you mentioned that, because I think it's important for everyone to hear. All right. Well, there's so much more I want to ask you about Steady Stream Investments, but we've got to move on. So let's move on to the Investing for Good impact round. So we're going to ask you a couple questions about investing for good. So the first question is around investing in yourself. So what is one way your investments have helped make your life better and sweeter?
Yeah. So I think for me, it's because I've involved my kids in my business, and I don't like to separate what mom does, like mom's business from mom as just a family person, right? So I feel like it should be all integrated, and it's made it sweeter for me to really teach my children about real estate, to teach them about investing, teach them how to fix up houses, teach them how to treat others, and how to get out of their comfort zones. And that's been very sweet, because my oldest daughter just graduated high school, and she's just like, Mom, I want to do real estate. I want to do real estate. And so she wants to do it. She's right there and ready and anxious to get her own property and start investing her own investing journey, and very young. And so that's very sweet.
Oh my gosh. I love it. And as mothers, this is our duty. Like, this is our responsibility to teach this missing link about investing and financial education that isn't there in the school system, and is hard for even adults to find, right? I mean, it was hard. I dug for years. Every financial advisor I spoke to, couldn't tell me a word about real estate. Everything was about stocks and bonds and this long-term 30-year horizon. And it's like, no, it doesn't need to be that way. There's another way. And so it's our job and our duty, I almost feel like, as mothers and as citizens of the world, to, share this information. And so I love that, that's something that you've been able to do with your children. And I can't wait till my daughters, they're already investing with me at, 7 and 8, but I can't wait wait till they're 18 and, hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll be interested. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll see.
Okay. Second question is investing in others. So what is one investment strategy or hack that you might be able to share with the audience that will help them catapult their investing journey?
Yeah. So I think earlier I talked about how it's important for you to build relationships. So if you want to get involved in a syndication, you need to build relationships. And then you're thinking, okay, well, how do I do that? Right. So part of this is getting out of your comfort zone. And that's one of the things that I've been really good at. It's not that I love it. I don't love getting out of my comfort zone, but I know that I need to do that to grow. And so I'm going to share a quick little networking tip. Right? I hated the word networking a long time ago because it just gave me all sorts of fear and terror. And still to this day, when I go to a networking event, I walk in the room and immediately my heart just sinks and I have to force myself to not turn around and go right back out to my car. So this is a tip that's helped me a lot. So when you go to these networking events, and you can look them up, Meetup is a great thing. You can look up real estate meetup, local one. Walk into that room with one goal in mind, and that all you have to do is meet 5 people. 5 people, have 5 conversations, and then you're free to go, right? 5 conversations. So you walk in the room, you make your 5 conversations, maybe you get 5 business cards, and now you have 5 contacts, and then you can leave. And if you can do that in 20 minutes, you do it in 20 minutes, and then you're out of there, right? So you don't feel like you have to stay around for forever, because sometimes that's just too overwhelming for people like me who are a little more introverted in nature. When I go to places I don't know people, but you definitely need to start getting out there.
Yeah. That's such a good tip, because I think networking is such an abstract thing for so many people. There are no bounds, and that's why it's so overwhelming. But when you create a framework around it, it becomes much more doable.
Yeah. And, for me, when I first started getting into this, the networking piece was, oh my gosh, so valuable. It's all I did in the beginning. And I still am, I have now, work with some of those people. We're, friends on Facebook. We're always talking about potentially ways to work together. But I learned so much in those early days by talking to as many people as I could who were willing to give me the time. And I, I'm so appreciative of that. But back when I was just like, hey, what is a syndication? And all these very basic questions, and people would actually get on the phone and talk to me. But there's so much value in networking that I think a lot of people sort of underestimate. And I know we're in the midst of a pandemic right now, so real life meetups might not be possible, but there are certainly tons of virtual ones that are happening everywhere right now. So definitely keep an eye out there for those. All right, last question is investing in the world. So what is one way your investments are helping to make the world a better place?
Yeah, so I kind of touched on that earlier, but every investment that I do is very intentional and purposeful. And so I want to choose investments that need some help, right? So, I mean, some of these apartment complexes need a lot of help. They need a lot of cleanup. Sometimes there might be some not so great people living in there that need to exit. And so we want to come in and make them just very safe communities for others. And that's really important to me. And then also in the senior housing space, again, just providing a beautiful home, just being part of that solution that they need.
That's what I love about multifamily syndication, is just that so many people win, in everything that we do, from the general partners and the people who put the deal together, to the limited passive partners who, get to leverage the knowledge and experience of the general partners, and to the residents where, we're improving those communities and making it a nicer place for everyone to live. So I definitely 100%. I love that. So, yeah.
And so, Camilla, I know we've only touched on the tip of the iceberg with your journey and all that you're teaching your kids, and now all that you're teaching your investors through Steady Stream Investments. So for the listeners out there who really connected with you and loved hearing your story and want more, what's the best place that they can go to connect with you and to learn more about all that you're doing?
Yeah, so I think the very best place is probably LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, and I put education out every single day. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, that's fine. You can connect with me on my website, steadystreaminvestments.com. And it's just all about education, because I'm really passionate about educating people. And even if it's not the right investment for you, right? Even if you decide, this doesn't feel right, great. That's totally fine, because Bitcoin doesn't feel right to me, right? so you have to find what feels right. But if you need more education, if you need to understand and learn more, I mean, as a woman, I feel like I need extra education before I make big decisions like this. And it can be a big decision, right? So feel free to come to my website. I have a free passive investing made easy master's class that I developed that you can get for free. Just right there on my website, you just put in your name and email and it'll be right in your inbox. And so you can definitely learn from me about how to even go about doing this, because it's really powerful. And I hope you'll take I hope the listeners will really take just a small step today to just start educating, right? And start learning more what you can do.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have links to all of that in the show notes. For all our listeners, definitely check out Steady Stream Investments. Camilla Jeffs, founder of Steady Stream Investments, thank you so much for sharing your story, your journey, and your wisdom with us today, Camilla.
You've been listening to Investing for Good, the #1 podcast for people like you who are investing to build a legacy for their families, create a meaningful and intentional life by design, and impact the world around them. For more resources, check out goodegginvestments.com/podcast. And be sure to join the Investing for Good Facebook community. And don't forget to subscribe and give us a 5-star review so we can continue to bring you amazing new conversations every week. Until next time, keep investing for good.